On Mother's Day, I brought homemade food and warm memories to my daughter's house, hoping to be celebrated like I once was. But from the moment I arrived, I felt like an outsider. My daughter barely acknowledged me, while her mother-in-law was treated like royalty. At the dining table, two gifts sat waiting. One, wrapped in silk, was for Margaret. My daughter gave her a diamond ring and a luxury cruise. The other, wrapped in thin plastic, was for me, a cheap hairbrush. I smiled through it all, but deep inside, I felt something break. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't speak out. But I'll never forget how that day made me feel. This story may feel familiar or painfully close to home.
So stay until the end.
Sometimes, the people we trust the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. My heart fluttered with a quiet happiness as I stepped out of the taxi. The Grand Meridian Hotel loomed, all polished glass and shimmering lights. This was it, the annual family dinner. I, Eleanor, had looked forward to this evening for weeks. Seeing my son, Michael, and his family, especially my grandchildren, always filled a void left by Arthur's passing 5 years ago. He had loved these big family gatherings. I smoothed my simple, blue dress, a favorite of Arthur's, and took a deep breath. Just being here, surrounded by the promise of warmth and laughter, felt good. Inside, the ballroom buzzed with chatter and the clinking of glasses. My eyes scanned the room, searching for Michael. I spotted him near a large round table, laughing with his wife, Victoria. She wore a sparkling gown, looking as impeccable as always. "Michael, darling." I called out, a smile wide on my face. He turned, his smile fading slightly.
Mom.
"You made it." He gave me a quick, almost hesitant hug. "Victoria, look who's here." Victoria turned, her smile polite but distant. "Eleanor, how lovely of you to join us." Her eyes swept over my dress, then to my sensible shoes. I ignored the subtle judgment in her gaze. "It's wonderful to be here," I said, looking around the lavish room. "You've outdone yourselves this year." "Yes, well, we believe in doing things properly," Victoria replied, her voice smooth but with an edge. "Unlike some." My smile tightened, but I didn't comment. Michael cleared his throat. "Mom, this is our table. We saved you a seat right here." He gestured to a chair at the far end, away from the main family cluster. I nodded, not wanting to make a fuss. The dinner began, and I tried to engage. I asked Michael about his work. "How's the new project coming along?" I asked. "Oh, it's fine, Mom." "Busy as ever," he mumbled, already turning to talk to a business associate beside him. Victoria, however, seemed more interested in me. "Eleanor, are you still managing your quaint little house on your own?" she asked, loud enough for a few nearby guests to turn their heads. "Yes, dear. It's my home. I'm quite comfortable there," I replied, trying to keep my voice even. "Comfortable?" She let out a small, tinkling laugh. "But darling, the upkeep must be dreadful. You know, Michael and I have always said you should consider something more manageable. Less burden." Her words were like tiny needles. "I manage just fine, thank you," I said, picking up my water glass. Then, Victoria's voice became sharper, cutting through the general hum of conversation. "Honestly, Michael," she said, not quite whispering, "I'm not sure why we invited her. It's simply not a good look for our guests to see, well, you know, someone of her modest means." My hand trembled, nearly spilling my water. My heart clenched. Modest means? She had always implied I was old-fashioned, but never this direct, this cruel. "Victoria, please," Michael murmured, but it was too weak. She ignored him, her gaze fixed on me, cold and disdainful. "This is a high-class event, Eleanor. Our guests are important. We can't have the illusion spoiled by someone who clearly doesn't belong. Frankly, it's embarrassing." A wave of heat rose to my cheeks. I felt every eye on me. "What are you saying, Victoria?" My voice was barely a whisper. She sighed, as if genuinely pained. "I'm saying you're bringing down the tone of our evening. This is a celebration of success, of status. And you, Eleanor, you stick out like a sore thumb. You're the pauper among us." Get this pauper away from the table. My breath hitched. The words echoed in the sudden silence around our table. Guests nearby had stopped talking, their eyes wide. A waiter froze, holding a tray. My son, Michael, shifted in his seat, his gaze fixed on his plate.
He didn't look at me.
He didn't say a word. "Excuse me, ma'am?" A burly man in a hotel security uniform suddenly appeared beside our table. Victoria must have signaled him. "Yes," Victoria said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "This guest is causing a disturbance. She needs to be escorted out. Immediately." My mouth felt dry. My legs felt like lead. I wanted to scream, to cry, to disappear. But I stood up, slowly, my dignity, the only thing I had left. The security guard looked at me, then at Victoria, then back at me. He seemed hesitant. "Is there a problem, ma'am?" he asked me, his voice gentler than Victoria's. "No," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, though it felt like shattered glass.
"No, there isn't."
"I understand." I glanced at Michael one last time, a silent plea in my eyes, but he still wouldn't meet my gaze. He just sat there. "My son." "Good," Victoria chirped, a triumphant glint in her eyes. I turned and walked away from the table, my head held high, though every step felt like a betrayal. The murmurs started again behind me, growing louder, turning into whispers. The opulent ballroom, which had promised joy, now felt like a cold, hollow tomb. I could feel the stairs on my back, burning into me. But more than the stairs, more than Victoria's cruel words, it was Michael's silence that truly broke my heart. I was Eleanor, and at this moment, I was utterly alone. The cold night air bit at my exposed skin as I stepped out of the Grand Meridian. It was a sharp contrast to the burning shame that still flushed my face. Each breath felt like a gasp, pulling in the icy air, yet doing nothing to cool the fire of humiliation within me. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers clumsy. I just wanted to be home. The taxi ride was a blur. I stared out the window, but all I saw was Victoria's sneering face, her finger pointing, the security guard's hesitant eyes. And Michael's silence. That silence was the loudest sound in the world. When I finally unlocked my front door, my quiet home felt deafening. The silence was not peaceful. It was filled with the echoes of Victoria's harsh words. "Pauper. Doesn't belong. Embarrassing." They bounced off the walls, trapping me in a cage of humiliation. How could this have happened? Eleanor, had always given so much. Not just money, but my time, my love, my support. Especially after Arthur passed. He would have been furious. I sank onto my sofa, the soft cushions offering no comfort. My mind reeled, replaying not just tonight, but years. It wasn't a sudden burst of cruelty, was it?
No.
A knot formed in my stomach as I realized this was a culmination. A slow, steady erosion of respect. I remembered the first time. It was 6 months after Arthur's funeral. Michael and Victoria had come over for dinner. "Mom," Michael had begun, a little too casually. "Victoria and I were looking at new cars. My old one is really on its last legs." Victoria had jumped in, her voice sweet. "And with the kids' school fees, we're just a bit stretched, Eleanor. We were hoping maybe a small loan." I'd written them a check for a new luxury sedan that evening. Of course, steers. Anything to help. I remembered feeling good about it then, useful. Then there was the home improvement project. "Eleanor, darling," Victoria had said over the phone, "our kitchen is just so dated. We really need to update it. For the family, when everyone comes over." "How much are we talking about, dear?" I'd asked, already knowing the answer. "Oh, just a little contribution. Say 50,000. Michael had chimed in. I'd sent the money. And the little contribution for their summer vacation to the Caribbean. And the emergency funds for Michael's failing business venture. Each time, I told myself it was for family, for Arthur's legacy, for their happiness. But with each request, their tone shifted. The gratitude lessened, replaced by an expectation and entitlement. The subtle hints about my simple life became more frequent, more pointed. My small, cozy home, filled with Arthur's memories, became quaint, then too much trouble for you. My comfortable clothes became modest, then unsuitable. I closed my eyes, a wave of nausea washing over me. It wasn't about helping them anymore. It was about them taking. And me, Eleanor, letting them. This wasn't a mistake tonight. It was the final, brutal truth. Just then, my phone vibrated, startling me. I looked at the screen.
Chloe.
My granddaughter. My heart gave a little leap. I answered, my voice still shaky. Grandma? Are you okay? Chloe's voice was soft, genuinely worried. Chloe, darling. Yes, I'm fine. I tried to sound strong, but the lie felt heavy on my tongue. No, you're not. I saw what happened. I heard Mom. I'm so sorry, Grandma. Her voice cracked. You saw? My voice was barely a whisper.
Yes.
Everyone did. It was awful. I wanted to say something, but she trailed off. But what, sweetheart? Dad just grabbed my arm. He said, don't make a scene, Chloe. He just stood there. A fresh wave of pain hit me.
He did.
Grandma, I've been trying to tell you, Chloe continued, her voice lower now, almost a whisper. It's not just about Mom being.
Mom.
There's more. A lot more. More? What do you mean? More? I pressed, a flicker of something new, a cold suspicion, replacing the raw hurt. I don't know if I should say anything. It's their business, but she hesitated, clearly torn. Chloe, please. After tonight, I need to know. What is it? It's just they talk.
About you.
About Grandpa's money. A lot. What do they say? My voice was tight.
Things.
About how much you have. How it should be managed. How you don't need all of it. They even mentioned your house. My breath hitched. My house. The one Arthur and I built. My house? What about it? They said it's too big for you now. That it would be better if you downsized. And that the money from selling it could really help the family. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about humiliation. It was about control. About taking everything. They want my house? I don't know, Grandma. They just talk. A lot. About your finances. And how they're owed something. Chloe's voice was filled with a mix of shame and anger. I'm so sorry you had to go through that tonight. You didn't deserve it. No, I didn't. I said, the words firm, resolute. The hurt was still there, a raw wound, but beneath it, something else was stirring. A quiet anger. A determination. This wasn't just about Victoria's cruelty anymore. This was about something much deeper. And I, Eleanor, was going to find out exactly what. The first light of dawn crept through my bedroom curtains, but I hadn't slept. How could I? Victoria's words, Michael's silence, Chloe's whispered warnings, they spun in my head like a cruel carousel. The humiliation of that night, the feeling of being discarded, spurred me to action. I knew I couldn't let this stand. Not anymore. I walked to the kitchen, the quiet house feeling vast and empty. I made myself tea, my hands still trembling slightly. My gaze fell on Arthur's old leather-bound address book, sitting on the counter. My eyes landed on a name, Mr. Sterling. Arthur's longtime attorney. A kind, steady presence who had guided me through the maze of Arthur's estate after his passing. He would know. He would understand. I picked up the phone, my fingers hovering over the numbers. It was early, but I couldn't wait. I took a deep breath and dialed. Mr. Sterling's office. A polite voice answered. Hello, this is Eleanor Ashworth. I need to speak with Mr. Sterling. It's urgent. My voice wavered despite my best efforts. One moment, Mrs. Ashworth. I'll see if he's available. A few seconds later, Mr. Sterling's calm, familiar voice came on the line. Eleanor? What a surprise. Is everything all right? No, Mr. Sterling. No, it's not, I said, and to my own surprise, my voice cracked. The dam of composure I'd built up through the night began to crumble. Something terrible happened last night.
Oh, dear.
Please tell me. His tone was immediately empathetic. I recounted the events of the family dinner, my voice trembling with a mix of anger, hurt, and fresh humiliation. I told him about Victoria's cruel words, her calling security, her branding me a pauper. I even confessed Michael's awful silence. She said I didn't belong. I finished, a tear finally escaping and tracing a path down my cheek. And Michael, he just let her. There was a long silence on the other end. I could hear his steady breathing. Eleanor, he said, his voice grave. I am so deeply sorry you had to endure such a thing. That is utterly unacceptable. But why, Mr. Sterling? Why would they do this? I've given them so much, especially since Arthur. My voice trailed off. Eleanor, he began, his voice softer now. Arthur was a very astute man.
And he knew his family well.
My brow furrowed. What do you mean? He had concerns. Concerns about how you might be treated after he was gone. He wanted to ensure your peace of mind, your dignity. A cold dread began to creep in. Concerns? What kind of concerns? He made a specific provision in his will, Eleanor. An addendum. He insisted it remain confidential unless it became necessary. My heart began to pound. Necessary for what? To protect you, Eleanor, from exactly this kind of behavior. An addendum? I whispered, my mind reeling. Arthur had foreseen this? My kind, loving Arthur, who always saw the best in everyone, even Michael and Victoria?
Yes.
He added it shortly before he passed. He was very clear about his intentions. What does it say? I asked, my voice barely audible. It states, very explicitly, that any descendant who publicly humiliates you, Eleanor, by treating you with disrespect, attempting to control your finances against your wishes, or trying to force you from your home, forfeits their entire inheritance from his estate. The phone almost slipped from my grasp. Forfeits their entire inheritance? The words hit me like a physical blow. Not because of the money itself, but because of the implication. Arthur had known. He had known their true nature. He had known they might turn on me. Arthur, he did this? I asked, a strange mix of shock and a painful vindication washing over me.
He did.
He wanted you to be secure, to be respected, not for fear of losing money, but out of genuine love and care. He hoped it would never need to be invoked. But they called me a pauper. They tried to have me removed. I murmured, the scene flashing before my eyes. Victoria. Michael's silence. That would certainly qualify, Eleanor, Mr. Sterling confirmed, his voice firm. And from what you've told me, and what I've observed over the past few years, there have been other incidents that would also fall under the terms of this addendum. I thought of Chloe's words last night, her warning about them wanting my house. The pieces clicked into place, forming a horrifying picture. They weren't just thoughtless. They were calculating. They were after Arthur's money, and they saw me as an obstacle. His fortune, it's much larger than even I realized, isn't it? I asked, a sudden clarity washing over me. Arthur had been private about his wealth, always. Significantly, Eleanor. He was a very shrewd investor. He built a substantial legacy. A heavy burden of choice settled upon me. This wasn't just about my hurt feelings anymore. This was about justice. About Arthur's wishes. About protecting myself. Should I enforce this powerful clause? Should I unleash Arthur's final, silent judgment on them? What do I do, Mr. Sterling? I asked, my voice laced with a newfound resolve. What happens now? That, Eleanor, is entirely up to you. The addendum is legally binding. I have the documents here. We can discuss your options. Would you be able to come to my office this afternoon? Yes, I said, my voice stronger now. Yes, I'll be there. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. Thank you. As I hung up the phone, I looked around my quiet home. It felt different now. No longer just a place of comfort and memory, but a place where a powerful truth had just been revealed. Arthur, even in death, was still protecting me. And now I, Eleanor, had the means to protect myself. The game had changed. The drive home from Mr. Sterling's office felt different. The world outside my car window, once a blur of my own pain, now seemed sharper, clearer. Arthur's addendum. It was a shield, a sword, a secret. As I pulled into my driveway, a profound sense of purpose settled over me. I had a choice to make, and I knew, deep in my heart, what it had to be. I spent the rest of the afternoon sitting in Arthur's study, the addendum document spread before me. I read it again and again, the legal language no longer complex, but chillingly precise. My finger traced Arthur's signature. He had loved me so much. He had tried to protect me. But revealing this now, in the heat of my anger, felt wrong. It would force their hand, yes, but it wouldn't truly show me their hearts. I wanted to see if Victoria and Michael would change, if their true colors would continue to show without the threat of immediate consequence. This was my critical choice. Not revenge, not yet, but observation. A silent strategy. The next morning, I began to reclaim my life, starting with small, deliberate steps. Arthur had always encouraged my interest in art. Eleanor, he used to say, your hands were made for creating, not just for managing a household. I remembered seeing a flyer for a ceramics class at the community center. I called them. Hello, I'm interested in your beginner's ceramics class, I said, a lightness in my voice I hadn't heard in years. Wonderful. We have a few spots left for the Tuesday morning session, the woman on the phone replied cheerfully. Perfect. I'll take one. My first class was a revelation. The cool, damp clay in my hands, the rhythmic spin of the wheel, it was meditative. I felt a sense of focus I hadn't experienced since Arthur passed. You have a natural touch, Eleanor, the instructor, a kind woman named Clara, told me, her hands guiding mine. Just let the clay tell you what it wants to be. I'm trying, I laughed, feeling a genuine smile spread across my face. It's been a long time since I've tried anything new. Never too late to start, Clara said, winking. I also reached out to old friends. Beatrice, my dearest friend from college, was the first. We hadn't seen much of each other since Arthur's death, my grief and Michael and Victoria's demands consuming my time. Beatrice, it's Eleanor, I said when she answered. Eleanor, my goodness, it's been ages. Is everything all right? Her voice was warm, familiar. Everything is changing. I'd love to catch up. Are you free for lunch next week? Absolutely. I've missed you so much. Our lunch was a balm to my soul. We talked for hours, reminiscing, laughing, and for the first time, I truly opened up about the loneliness I'd felt and the subtle pressures from Michael and Victoria. Oh, Eleanor, Beatrice said, her eyes filled with sympathy. I always worried about you after Arthur. They seemed to swoop in. They did, I admitted, but no more. The calls from Michael and Victoria started again, predictably, always with a new opportunity or a small favor. One afternoon, my phone rang. It was Michael.
Mom.
How are you? His voice was unusually cheerful. I'm well, Michael. And you? Great, great. Listen, Victoria and I were talking. You know that little vacation home we've always dreamed of? Upstate? Well, we found the perfect place. It just needs a little love. I knew what was coming. Oh, yeah, it's a fixer-upper. But the potential. Anyway, we were thinking, with your comfortable situation, you might want to help us out. Just a small investment, you know, for the family. I took a breath. Michael, I'm afraid I'm not in a position to make any new investments right now. I'm managing my own affairs, and I've decided to keep my resources focused on my own needs. There was a pause. Your own needs? Mom, this is for us. For the family. His voice hardened slightly. And I appreciate that, dear. But my answer is no. But Dad would have wanted you to help us. Arthur wanted me to be happy and secure, Michael. And I am. Goodbye, dear. I hung up, my hand shaking a little, but a surprising sense of strength blooming in my chest. It felt good to say no. Victoria's call came a few days later. Eleanor, darling. Michael tells me you're being difficult. Her voice was like ice. I'm simply making my own financial decisions, Victoria. But this is family. We need your support for Liam's future. He's looking at a new business venture, very promising, but it requires significant capital. Liam is a bright young man. I'm sure he'll find a way to fund his own ventures. I'm managing my own affairs now. This is ridiculous. You're sitting on a fortune. What do you even do with it? That, Victoria, is my business. I ended the call. Each refusal was a small victory, a tiny step towards reclaiming myself. I also noticed a subtle shift in my interactions with Liam and Grace. They seemed more distant, more formal. At a casual family lunch hosted by Michael and Victoria, a rare event I almost didn't attend, Liam seemed unusually quiet. "Liam, how are things?" I asked, trying to engage him. He looked up, a flicker of something in his eyes. Embarrassment?
Fine, Grandma.
Busy with Grace. Grace, usually so polite, barely met my gaze. Yes, very busy. Your parents mentioned a new business venture, Liam? I prompted gently. He shifted uncomfortably.
Oh, that.
Yeah, well, we're still looking into options. It's complicated. I knew then that Michael and Victoria had been talking, painting a picture of me as ungenerous, perhaps even selfish. It hurt, but it also confirmed my decision. They were showing their true colors, just as I had hoped. My silent strategy was working. I, Eleanor, was watching. And I was learning. As I, Eleanor, continued to set firm boundaries, the calls from Victoria and Michael grew more frequent, and their tone shifted from subtle hints to outright demands. My quiet refusals seemed to fuel their desperation. It was like watching a slow motion unraveling. Their polished facade, which had always seemed so impenetrable, was beginning to show cracks. One morning, Michael called, his voice tight with frustration. "Mom, what is going on? Victoria and I are trying to plan our summer trip, and frankly, things are tighter than usual." "I'm sorry to hear that, Michael," I replied, stirring my tea. I was sitting in my garden, enjoying the morning sun. It felt good to be outside, away from their constant pressure. "Sorry isn't helping, Mom. We're talking about a family vacation here. Liam and Grace are expecting it. You always contributed before." "Yes, I did," I agreed calmly. "But as I've told you, I'm managing my own affairs now. My resources are allocated." "Allocated to what? Your little art classes? Your old friends?" His voice rose. "Don't you think family comes first? We're talking about your grandchildren here." "My grandchildren are grown, Michael. And they are perfectly capable of understanding financial realities. Just as you are." "This is ridiculous. Dad would be furious if he knew you were hoarding his money. Arthur would be furious if he knew how you were treating me," I countered, my voice steady. "Goodbye, Michael." I hung up, my hand firm. The anger was still there, but it was a controlled fire now, not a consuming blaze. A few days later, Victoria showed up at my doorstep unannounced. She was dressed impeccably, but her eyes held a desperate glint. "Eleanor, we need to talk. Properly." I opened the door wider. "Come in, Victoria." She swept into my living room, her gaze darting around, assessing. "This house that's still so cluttered. You really should consider downsizing. It would free up so much capital." "My home is not for sale, Victoria," I stated, sitting in my armchair. She paced. "But think of the opportunities. Michael has a new business idea, a real game changer. It just needs a significant initial investment. We were hoping you'd see the potential." "What kind of investment?" I asked, though I already knew it would be something grand, something that required my money. "A tech startup. Very cutting edge. We just need a few $100,000 to get it off the ground. Think of the returns, Eleanor. It's for all of us, really." She tried to smile, but it looked strained. "I'm not interested in speculative investments, Victoria. Especially not with my retirement funds." "Retirement funds? You have more than enough. You're sitting on a fortune. What is wrong with you? Why are you suddenly being so selfish?" Her voice was rising, losing its polished edge. "I am not being selfish, Victoria. I am being responsible. For myself." "Responsible? You're letting us struggle. You're letting Liam and Grace miss out on opportunities. This is not the Eleanor I know." Perhaps you never truly knew me, Victoria, I said, my voice quiet but firm. She stared at me, her mouth open slightly, then snapped it shut. This isn't over, Eleanor. Not by a long shot. She turned and marched out, slamming the door behind her. I sighed, but felt no regret. Only a quiet resolve. My inner monologue was a constant battle between my past desire to please them and my newfound resolve. Was I being too harsh? Would Arthur approve? But then I'd remember Victoria's face at the dinner, Michael's silence, and the knot in my stomach would tighten.
No.
This was necessary. During this time, Chloe became my true confidant. She started visiting more often, sometimes just to sit with me, sometimes to help me with my ceramics. One afternoon, as we glazed some pots in my small studio, she looked troubled. "Grandma," she began, her voice low, "Mom and Dad are fighting a lot. About money." "Oh." I dipped a brush in glaze, keeping my expression neutral.
"Yeah."
"All the time. Dad says Mom spends too much, and Mom says Dad isn't bringing in enough. And then they both start talking about your money." "What do they say?" I asked, meeting her eyes. Chloe hesitated, then sighed. "Mom says you're being unreasonable and holding out. Dad says you're forgetting your family responsibilities. They're both so obsessed." "Obsessed with what, Chloe?" "With Grandpa's money. With what they think they're owed. It's like that's all they see."
"Not you, Grandma."
"Just the money." Her eyes were sad. "And what about you, sweetheart? What do you see?" She looked at me, her gaze steady. "I see you. And I see how much happier you are now. How you're doing your art, seeing your friends. You're you again." A warmth spread through my chest, chasing away some of the lingering hurt. "Thank you, Chloe. That means a lot." "They even argue about Liam and Grace," she continued. "Mom says Liam needs to step up and convince Grandma to help with his business ideas. And Grace is apparently too soft to push him. So they're trying to use Liam and Grace?" I asked, a bitter taste in my mouth. "Kind of. It's all about the money, Grandma. Always. I heard Mom tell Dad that if you just sold the house, all their problems would be solved. She said, 'It's just a house, Michael. Think of the capital.'" My heart clenched. My home. The place filled with Arthur's presence, with memories of our life together. They truly saw it as just an asset to be liquidated. This wasn't just about greed. It was about a profound lack of understanding, a disregard for anything that wasn't material. "Thank you for telling me, Chloe," I said, my voice firm. "It helps me understand." "Are you going to do something, Grandma?" she asked, her eyes wide with a mix of hope and trepidation. I looked at her, my kind, observant granddaughter. "I am, sweetheart. I am." Chloe's honesty, her clear-eyed view of her parents' behavior, strengthened my resolve. I saw their true motivations, their selfishness, their entitlement. And I, Eleanor, was no longer willing to be their personal ATM. The cracks in their facade were widening, revealing the hollow core beneath. My silent strategy was working. It was time to prepare for the next step. The invitation to Michael and Victoria's anniversary party had arrived with an almost desperate flourish. A celebration of 2 decades of enduring love and success, the card proclaimed, embossed in gold. I, Eleanor, almost didn't go. But a quiet curiosity and a desire to see just how far their facade would stretch compelled me. I chose a simple, elegant black dress, one Arthur had bought me years ago. It felt like wearing a piece of him, a reminder of true worth, not the kind they flaunted. The grand ballroom of the city's most exclusive club glittered with chandeliers and designer clothes. Michael and Victoria stood by the entrance, greeting guests with dazzling, practiced smiles. Their laughter echoed a little too loudly.
"Mom."
"You made it," Michael said, giving me a quick, almost perfunctory hug. His eyes darted around, as if checking who was watching. "Eleanor, darling, you look comfortable," Victoria chirped, her eyes scanning my dress with a familiar, dismissive glint. She was draped in diamonds, looking like a walking advertisement for excess. "I am, Victoria." "Thank you," I replied, my voice calm. I noticed Liam and Grace standing a little apart, looking uncomfortable. Chloe wasn't there yet. It's quite the affair, isn't it? I observed, taking in the lavish decorations. Only the best for our 20 years, Victoria declared, puffing out her chest slightly. It's important to show people where we stand. Indeed, I murmured, a faint smile playing on my lips. I wondered if she knew how transparent her efforts were. I moved away, mingling briefly with a few distant relatives. The air was thick with forced cheer and subtle competition. I saw Michael pull a guest aside, whispering intently, gesturing vaguely towards the lavish spread. He was clearly trying to impress, to secure something. Later, as the dinner courses were being cleared, Michael clinked his glass with a fork, signaling for attention. A hush fell over the room. I watched from my seat near the back, a quiet observer. Friends, family, thank you all for joining us tonight, Michael began, his voice booming with false confidence. Victoria stood beside him, beaming. 20 years. Can you believe it? And we couldn't have done it without the incredible support of our loved ones. He paused, his eyes sweeping the room, then landing on me. My stomach tightened. I knew what was coming. And speaking of support, Victoria interjected, taking the microphone from him, her smile syrupy sweet. We have to give a truly special thank you to my wonderful mother-in-law, Eleanor. She has been an absolute rock for our family, especially since Arthur's passing. Her generosity knows no bounds. A few people clapped politely. I felt a familiar flush rise to my cheeks, but this time, it was a flush of indignation, not shame. In fact, Victoria continued, her voice taking on that familiar, persuasive tone. Eleanor's incredible support has inspired Michael and me to embark on a truly exciting new venture. A groundbreaking tech startup that we believe will revolutionize the industry. She paused, looking directly at me, her eyes gleaming with expectation. And we know, with Eleanor's continued understanding and belief in our vision, this will be a phenomenal success, benefiting all of us, and securing the future for Liam and Chloe. The implication was clear. She was publicly volunteering my money, again. Trying to corner me. My patience, stretched thin over months of their demands, finally snapped. I stood up.
Slowly. Calmly.
The room was silent, all eyes on me. Michael's face was a mask of horror. Victoria's smile faltered. Victoria, I said, my voice clear and steady, cutting through the silence like a sharp blade. Michael. They both looked at me, stunned. I appreciate your kind words, I continued, my gaze sweeping over the faces in the room, then settling firmly on my son and daughter-in-law. However, I must clarify something. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Eleanor, what are you doing? She hissed, her voice barely audible. My financial decisions, I stated, loud enough for everyone to hear, are my own. And they are not subject to public discussion, nor are they a matter for public announcement. A collective gasp rippled through the room. The silence that followed was absolute, heavy with shock. Victoria's face flushed a deep crimson, her perfectly made-up features contorting into a mask of fury. Michael looked as if he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Furthermore, I continued, my voice gaining strength with each word, while I wish you both success in your new venture, I will not be investing in it. My resources are committed to my own affairs, and to supporting those who truly deserve it, on my own terms. I could feel the power shift in the room. The air crackled with it. Their smug confidence had evaporated, replaced by stunned disbelief and raw anger. Victoria's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Michael just stared, his jaw slack. I looked at them, truly looked at them. The years of quiet suffering, the constant giving, the subtle manipulations, it all coalesced into this one moment of public truth. And I, Eleanor, felt a profound sense of calm strength. The burden I had carried for so long, the weight of their expectations and my own misplaced guilt, simply lifted. I was free. I took a deep breath, the air in the room suddenly feeling lighter, cleaner. I had spoken my truth. I had set my boundary. And the world, their world, had just tilted on its axis. The unveiling was complete. The morning after the anniversary party, my phone began to ring before the sun had even fully risen. I Eleanor, let it ring. And ring. And ring. I knew it would be Michael and Victoria, furious, demanding answers. But I felt a strange calm, a quiet resolve that had solidified overnight. The confrontation at the party had been a release, a necessary explosion. Now it was time for the fallout. Just as I finished my breakfast, the doorbell chimed insistently. I looked through the peephole and saw Michael and Victoria standing on my porch, their faces contorted with anger. Victoria's hair was a mess, and Michael's tie was askew. They looked less like the impeccably dressed couple from last night and more like two children throwing a tantrum. I opened the door, my expression serene. "Good morning." "Good morning." Victoria shrieked, pushing past me into the hallway. "What the hell was that, Eleanor? What was that performance last night? You humiliated us." Michael followed, his face pale with rage. "Mom, you ruined everything. Do you have any idea how much that investment meant to us? How much face we lost?" I closed the door calmly. "I simply stated the truth, Victoria. My finances are my own, and I will not be pressured into investments I don't approve of." "Pressured? We're your family. We were offering you an opportunity." Victoria paced my living room like a caged animal. "You're sitting on a fortune, Eleanor. Arthur's money. And you're hoarding it while your own son and daughter-in-law struggle." "Struggle?" I raised an eyebrow. "Victoria, you just hosted a party that likely cost more than my annual income." "That's irrelevant," Michael interjected, his voice rising. "This is about respect. About family. Dad would be ashamed of you, Mom. Absolutely ashamed." "Ashamed of me?" I asked, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "Or ashamed of you, Michael? For standing by while your wife called your mother a pauper and tried to have her thrown out of a dinner." Michael flinched, his eyes darting away. Victoria's jaw tightened. "That was a misunderstanding. A joke. A joke that cut deeper than any knife, Victoria. A joke that was part of a pattern. The constant demands for money, the thinly veiled insults about my home, my life. And now, this attempt to publicly corner me into funding your latest opportunity." "We need that money, Eleanor," Victoria screamed, her voice cracking. "We're owed it. It's our inheritance." "Your inheritance?" I repeated, my voice now cold, hard. "Is that what this is truly about?" Just then, the doorbell chimed again. I had been expecting him. I walked to the door and opened it. Mr. Sterling stood there, holding a slim briefcase. "Mr. Sterling," Michael blurted out, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "Good morning, Michael, Victoria," Mr. Sterling said calmly, stepping inside. His presence seemed to instantly deflate some of their aggression. He looked at me. "Eleanor, are you ready?" "Yes, Mr. Sterling. I am." He turned to Michael and Victoria, his expression professional, unreadable. "I believe we need to discuss Arthur's will. Specifically, an addendum he made shortly before his passing." Victoria scoffed. "An addendum? What's this nonsense? Arthur's will is settled." "Not entirely," Mr. Sterling replied, opening his briefcase and taking out a document. "Arthur was a man of foresight. He was deeply concerned about Eleanor's well-being after he was gone. He wanted to ensure her dignity and respect." "What are you talking about?" Michael demanded, a flicker of unease in his eyes. "Arthur's will contains a specific clause," Mr. Sterling began, his voice clear and deliberate, "an addendum that states any direct descendant who publicly humiliates Eleanor by treating her with disrespect, attempting to control her finances against her wishes, or trying to force her from her home, forfeits their entire inheritance from his estate." The words hung in the air, heavy and absolute. Victoria's face drained of all color, turning a sickly shade of white. Michael's jaw dropped, his eyes wide with dawning horror. They looked like statues, frozen in disbelief. That's ridiculous." Victoria finally managed to stammer, her voice thin. "Arthur would never." "He did," Mr. Sterling stated, holding up the document. "It is legally binding. And as the executor of his estate, I have, over the past several months, meticulously documented numerous incidents that meet the conditions of this addendum." He looked directly at Victoria. The incident at the family dinner, where you publicly called Eleanor a pauper and had security attempt to remove her. The repeated attempts to gain control of her finances. The discussions about forcing her from her home, which Eleanor has informed me of and which I have corroborated through other means. He looked at Michael. Your complicity in these actions, Michael, also falls under the terms. The silence was deafening. The shock was absolute. Their carefully constructed world, built on the assumption of Arthur's wealth, was crumbling before their eyes. Just then, the front door opened and Liam and Grace walked in, looking confused. Mom? Dad? What's going on? Liam asked, sensing the tension in the room. They had arrived to pick up something they'd left behind. Now, they stood in the doorway, innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire. Mr. Sterling looked at me. Eleanor, I have to ask you directly, in the presence of all parties. Do you wish to enforce the addendum? All eyes turned to me. Michael and Victoria stared, their faces a mixture of fear and desperate pleading. Liam and Grace looked on, stunned, slowly piecing together the gravity of the situation. I looked at my son, the boy I had raised, and saw only the man consumed by greed. I looked at Victoria, whose cruelty had finally pushed me to this point. Yes, I said, my voice clear and unwavering. Yes, Mr. Sterling. I do. Michael collapsed onto the nearest chair, burying his face in his hands. Victoria let out a small, strangled cry. The reckoning had begun. The silence that followed my declaration was thick, suffocating. Michael sat slumped in the chair, his face pale and drawn. Victoria, however, found her voice, a high-pitched, desperate sound. You can't be serious, Eleanor. You wouldn't. This is our family, our inheritance, she shrieked, her eyes wide with a frantic disbelief. I've never been more serious, Victoria, I replied, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding a rhythm of both fear and triumph. Mr. Sterling stepped forward, his expression unyielding. The addendum is quite clear, Victoria, and legally binding. As Eleanor has chosen to enforce it, your share of Arthur's estate is forfeit. All of it, Michael mumbled, lifting his head, his eyes hollow. All of it, Mr. Sterling confirmed. The terms are absolute. Liam, who had been standing frozen with Grace in the doorway, finally spoke, his voice small. But our share? Is that gone too? He looked at me, a mix of confusion and fear in his eyes. Mr. Sterling consulted his notes. Liam, Grace, you were present for some of the incidents, but you did not actively participate in the public humiliation. However, you also did not speak up to defend Eleanor. He looked at them with a gentle but firm gaze. Your inheritance is tied to your parents' actions, as their direct descendants. So, yes, their forfeiture impacts your immediate claim through them. Grace gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Liam's shoulders slumped. I'm sorry, Grandma. Liam stammered, his voice thick with genuine regret. I should have said something. At the dinner. About Mom's name tag for you. I looked at him, truly looked at his remorseful face. We all make mistakes, Liam. The question is what we learn from them. Victoria, meanwhile, was already recovering, her desperation turning to fury. This is a setup. A conspiracy. You're trying to steal our money, Eleanor. I'll contest this in court. You'll get nothing. You are welcome to try, Victoria, Mr. Sterling said calmly, closing his briefcase with a snap. But as I mentioned, I have ample, meticulously documented evidence of the conditions being met. Arthur foresaw this. He ensured Eleanor would be protected. Protected? She tricked us. Michael shouted, pushing himself up from the chair. She let us believe the money was just sitting there, waiting to be used. No, Michael, I said, stepping forward, my gaze unwavering. I never promised you anything. You assumed. You took. You demanded. But you never once asked what I needed or wanted. What about Liam and Grace? Victoria pleaded, her voice suddenly honeyed, turning to them. They haven't done anything wrong. Surely, we can work this out as a family. Save it, Victoria. I cut in. It's too late for that. Michael stared at me, his face contorted. So that's it? After everything we've done for you, You're just cutting us off. No, Michael, I said, my voice firm. After everything I've done for you, I'm finally standing up for myself. There's a difference. The argument continued for a few more minutes, a futile flurry of accusations and denials from Michael and Victoria. Mr. Sterling remained impassive, occasionally interjecting with a legal point. Eventually, seeing the futility of their protests, Michael and Victoria stormed out, their faces a mask of bitter resentment. Liam and Grace lingered. "Grandma," Liam said, his voice low, "we truly are sorry. We were influenced. We didn't see it clearly." Grace nodded, her eyes tearful. "We feel terrible. Is there anything we can do?" I looked at them, sensing their genuine remorse. "Just learn from this, Liam.
And Grace.
Build your own lives, on your own terms. That's all I ask." Mr. Sterling stayed a little longer, explaining the legal process that would follow. "The redistribution of their share will take some time, Eleanor, but it is legally sound. Half goes to you outright, and the other half is divided among descendants who have shown you proper respect and care." My heart swelled. "So, Chloe." Mr. Sterling smiled. "Chloe will receive a substantial portion, yes." Arthur was very clear about his intentions regarding those who demonstrated genuine care. After Mr. Sterling left, my home fell silent. I, Eleanor, felt a strange mix of sadness for what was lost and an overwhelming sense of liberation for what was gained. The burden I had carried for years, the constant weight of their demands, had finally lifted. I was free. The aftermath was indeed chaotic for Michael and Victoria. They immediately tried to contest the addendum, hiring expensive lawyers. But Mr. Sterling, true to his word, had meticulously documented every incident, every phone call, every public slight. Their case crumbled. The legal battle was swift and decisive, ending in their definitive loss of the inheritance. I heard through the grapevine, and later from Liam, that they had been forced to sell their lavish home and move to a smaller, more modest place in another state. Their lives, once defined by ostentatious displays, were now diminished by their greed. Karma, it seemed, had a very precise accounting system. My own life, however, began to flourish. With my newfound financial freedom, no longer burdened by their demands, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. I continued my ceramics classes, creating pieces that truly expressed my inner world. I spent more time with Beatrice and even joined a local book club. One afternoon, Chloe came over, her eyes shining with excitement. "Grandma, my business plan for the Artisan Cafe is finally complete. It's solid, I promise. But the startup costs are daunting." I smiled. "Chloe, darling, I've been thinking about your dream for a long time." Arthur believed in supporting passion, not just profit. Her eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I said, taking her hand, "I want to help you. I want to be your first investor. Consider it seed money. From me, Eleanor, to you, Chloe. No strings attached, just belief." Chloe's eyes welled up. "Grandma, are you serious? That would be incredible." "Perfectly serious. I want to see your dream come to life." Liam and Grace, humbled by the events, began to genuinely apologize and seek to rebuild their relationship with me. They started visiting more often, not asking for money, but simply for my company. Liam found a steady job, and Grace, a talented baker, started a small online business. They were building their own future, slowly, responsibly. Their remorse felt genuine, and I saw a glimmer of the good people Arthur and I had hoped they would become. The sands were shifting, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly hopeful for my family. 1 year later, my life, Eleanor's life, was transformed. The old house, once a quiet sanctuary, now hummed with a different kind of energy. It was a place of creation, of connection, of genuine joy. Chloe's Artisan Cafe, the daily brew and books, was thriving. It was located in a charming, converted historical building downtown, exactly as she had envisioned. I often visited, sitting in a cozy corner, sipping a latte and watching the customers. The shelves were filled with carefully curated books, and the aroma of freshly roasted coffee beans mingled with the sweet scent of Ethan's homemade pastries. Chloe's partner, Ethan, was a quiet, steady presence behind the counter, his passion for coffee matching Chloe's for books. "Grandma, can you do story time this Tuesday?" Chloe asked me one afternoon, her face flushed with enthusiasm. She had just finished a phone call with a local school. "Of course, sweetheart," I replied, a smile spreading across my face. Twice a week, I volunteered in the children's section, reading stories to neighborhood children. It was something I'd never imagined myself doing before, but the pure delight on their faces was infectious. The mural I had painted, a whimsical forest scene with hidden animals and fairy houses, covered one wall, a testament to my newfound artistic passion. My relationships with Chloe, Liam, and Grace were strong, built on genuine affection and respect, not obligation. Liam and Grace, having learned their lesson, were working hard and building their own future. Liam had found a stable job in marketing, and Grace's online baking business was growing steadily. They often visited me, sometimes with their baby daughter, Arthuria, named after her great-grandfather. "Grandma, Arthuria just said book," Liam exclaimed one Sunday, his face beaming as he held his daughter up to the shelves in Chloe's cafe. "Did she now?" I chuckled, reaching out to tickle the baby's chin. "She's a smart one, just like her great-grandpa." Sarah and David were a different story. Stripped of their expected inheritance, they had indeed moved away, their lives diminished by their greed. Our communication was limited to terse holiday cards and occasional updates through Liam. He told me they were constantly complaining about their new, smaller house, David's less glamorous job, and how unfair everything was. "They still don't get it, do they?" Liam sighed one day, shaking his head.
"No, dear.
"Some lessons are harder to learn than others," I replied, feeling a pang of something akin to pity, but no regret. I reflected on my journey, the painful lessons learned, and the profound freedom that came with standing up for myself. Arthur's legacy wasn't just money, it was the strength he instilled in me to protect my worth. He had tried to protect me with his addendum, but in the end, I had learned to protect myself. My own life continued to expand. My ceramics classes led to a small exhibition at a local gallery, where I even sold a few pieces. I reconnected with more old friends and made new ones. I started traveling, something Arthur and I had always planned to do, but never quite got around to. Simple weekend trips at first, then 2 weeks in Portugal with a senior tour group. It was on that trip that I met Marcus. He was a widower from Vancouver with kind eyes and a dry wit. We found ourselves sitting together on a bus tour, sharing stories and quiet laughter. "You have a wonderful spirit, Eleanor," he told me one evening over dinner. "And you, Marcus, have a way of making me laugh," I replied, feeling a blush creep up my cheeks. He started calling me every Sunday now, just to chat, just to see how I was. It was a gentle, unexpected connection, a new thread in the tapestry of my life. Arthur would have approved, I thought, not just of the cafe or my newfound independence, or even Marcus, but of the boundaries I'd finally established, the peace I had found. Arthuria let out a happy gurgle, pulling me back to the present. Liam was showing her a picture book about a little bear. This was my family now, not perfect, not complete, but real. We were building something new from the ruins of what had been lost, and it was, in its own way, beautiful. "What do you think, Grandma?" Chloe asked, pulling me into the conversation about expanding the cafe's community programs, including literacy tutoring for adults and creative writing workshops for teens. I smiled at my grandson and granddaughter, at the baby who represented our future, at the cafe that had grown from trust and respect rather than obligation and greed. "I think," I said, my voice filled with contentment, "that this is exactly where we're supposed to be." My future, once uncertain, now stretched before me, bright and full of possibility. How did this story make you feel? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below. And if you found even a piece of truth in this tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss the stories that matter. Also, check out the videos we've linked at the end. These are some of our most popular, most powerful stories. You might just find the one that stays with you.